All right, number 84, about live in-person mediumship demonstrations. That's the subject of today's video. As always, please like it, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. All of those things help other people to see these videos. So this past weekend on the 10th, I was part of the Sage Holistic Experience, which was an event, an all-day event that brought together all kinds of people. It was put on by a woman named Emily Sellis. Huge thank you to her and everyone that helped in the background that was running everything. They did a great job. There were a couple hundred people at least at this event, and every hour there were 3 different speakers on different topics, so you had to choose between who you were going to go see. And I was in that first group of 3. So, and I was the only one talking about mediumship. So in my theater, I had my own little theater. There were about 60 people in attendance for this. It was my first time doing an in-person demonstration. I'd done them for groups on Zoom, but never in person. So that was different. The energy is different in the room when they're live in the room with you. Because everyone had to choose between one of 3 people every hour or one of 3 presentations to go to. There was professional video footage made of everyone. So there were 17 of us talking for 45 minutes each that day, which is at least 13 hours of footage. So I don't know when I'll get it, but when I get it, I'll put the footage up so that everyone can see how the live dem went, and what a live dem is like if you haven't seen one. So this was it was not strictly a mediumship demonstration. It was a presentation about mediumship that included doing readings for people in the audience and having question and answer periods in between and at the end. So not a normal one. So I'll tell you, I rehearsed the non-mediumship part over and over and over again, which is mostly the intro and explaining what to expect in a group reading, explaining what mediumship is, what some of my beliefs are, that kind of thing. And so I do recommend, if you're going to do a live in-person dem ever, to rehearse all that stuff until it just comes off your mouth. I had an iPad on the side, to the side of me with notes that I wanted to make sure to hit. A good friend of mine suggested I was going to take a stool to maybe sit on, because I usually do most of my reading sitting down. She said, no, take 2 stools, and that way you can put a drink or notes or things like that on the other stool, which is exactly what I did. So it was there off to my side so I could refer to it. I tried to think ahead of time of the kinds of questions that I would get and have some idea of answers, and that was admirable, but the questions were unexpected and really interesting, so it didn't really matter whether I rehearsed those in my head or not. So for the couple of weeks leading up to the 10th, this event, every time I did a reading, whether it was a practice circle or with a client, I put my computer up high and I stood up because I knew I'd be standing for this event. And I also had a stopwatch running on my wrist so that when I was in the dem, I could just spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes with each person, because 20 minutes in a reading can go that fast. And I didn't want to just stick all with one person or just 2 people out of a room full, however many were going to be there. It turns out it was about 60. So I did that and got used to standing and constantly glancing at my watch, the stopwatch running on my wrist. So it was interesting. I got to this event 30 minutes early to see the room, to test the sound system, and everything was fine. They put me on the kind of microphone that rests on your ears, and then a piece comes around like that to your mouth, and that was all great. And then when it came time to the actual event, all these people came in. They were really excited. I was really excited. They called me up, and the sound had been turned up. So my own voice was booming in my ears, which was super distracting. And then they had also turned on spotlights on the stage. And so if you ever see the footage, I'm like this through most of it, because I can't see past the 2nd or 3rd row because the spotlights were blinding. So this was the worst possible circumstance to do a mediumship reading in, because I've got my own booming voice, which is distracting, and I'm blinded, right? Not good. So what came into play for me was years of public speaking experience, either doing PowerPoint presentations or performing in theatrical productions in plays. And you just have to roll with the tech issues when they happen. So that it wasn't my years of mediumship that came into play at that point. It was my years of just presenting to the public. And I'm a little disappointed in myself for that, because I got so caught up in the moment because I had never done an in-person live dem that I went ahead and did it. And if anything like that happens again, I'm just going to take a minute. And I suggest you take a minute and say, oh, you know what? Can we turn down my microphone? Can we dim the lights or just shut them off or whatever? So lesson learned, and it was a good lesson. And everybody there was so nice and so helpful that they would have done that. But I didn't ask, which was dumb on my part. But here's the thing. Despite the distractions, it all went really well. It was really good. They were good reads. It was really meaningful for the people that got them. And so I'm not at all fazed by the idea of doing future public demonstrations. I actually look forward to it if I get that opportunity. One weird thing about being in person, it affected in a negative way my mediumship. I get, when I'm reading for somebody, I get parents as up a level, and I get grandparents as up 2 levels. It's like they're on risers, and that was all screwed up. And I realized I was confused. Like, why is that? Why am I not getting the generations clearly like I do? And looking back on the event, I realized I was up on a stage, so I wasn't on the same level as the audience. And typically, like, if I feel like the person that I'm with is standing on the same floor as me, they're a peer to the client, or their peer to the sitter. If they're up a step, their parents' generation, that kind of thing. And I was up above them as it was, and so that kind of messed things up. And that's just me getting in my own head, but it's something to be aware of for me in the future. Then in between readings, I tried to do some questions and answers, and then at the end there was only like 3 minutes left, and that wasn't really enough time to do another read. So I said, I just called for questions, and there were some really deep questions that I was not prepared for. And so I just said to people, well, I can give you my opinion about this, but the energy in the room was very much like I was expected to know, in a way like having divine knowledge on the subject of life and death and the afterlife. And that was a little uncomfortable. I have had really negative experiences with some significant narcissists in my life, and I can see how being a medium would be attractive to narcissists. That was concerning. So I just said, I don't have all the answers, and let me give you my opinion. But it was weird, this expectation in the energy in the room that I would just know stuff. So that was unexpected. The best compliment I got all day was at the very end of the day. Hours later, I was leaving the event, and a woman said, oh, Lawrence, can I talk to you? And I didn't know who she was. I said, sure. She said, I really have to thank you. And I said, thanks, what for? And she said, my husband and I were at your presentation this morning, and you really threw him. He's a hardcore atheist, and he doesn't know what to make of you. And I love that he doesn't know what to make of you. And I thought, oh, that's a really good compliment. So that was nice. Here's the thing, I felt like this public dem, whenever it happened, me doing a dem for a group of people in an audience, in a theater like it was, that Spirit would have, would help me with that, would nudge me into when that would happen, or would help open the path to that experience. And that is what happened. But the unexpected thing was there were, 45-minute long workshops or speakers or presentations all day long. And at the very end of the day, I went to one on breath work that was amazing. I won't go into it because it's not the subject of this video or my YouTube channel, but it was wild. And I feel like that was actually my real reason for being there that day, was to discover this person who does breath work and to discover things about myself when doing directed breath work. It was really fascinating. So you never know what Spirit's going to throw at you, but it's really cool, and it's worth trusting them for help. So that was good. Next week, I hope to have footage of the live dem to put up, and that will be next week's video. But if not, because there's so many of us and there's so much for the people who took the video to do, I will alternatively talk about stuck souls and or rescue mediumship, because I have ideas and opinions about that. So that's it for today. That's this week's video. Thank you so much for walking. So thank you so much for watching. Please like the video, comment on it below, click the subscribe button, and thanks for joining me this time, and see you next week. Thanks a lot.